In the grand world of fantasy adventuring, where every alley may lead to an epic quest, and every tavern buzzes with the promise of new alliances, heroes are as common as questionable stew at a roadside inn. However, amidst the glamour of dragon slaying and kingdom saving, a less spoken truth lurks in the shadows. Our cherished adventurers are often as adept at blundering as they are at heroics. It seems that in their rush to become legends, many a would-be hero forgets that the path of adventuring is littered not just with treasures and accolades, but also with spectacularly poor decisions. The notion that every cloaked stranger is a mentor in waiting, every rusty blade is a cursed artifact, and every dungeon holds a nefarious plot, has led many adventurers into situations that, to the objective observer, might seem, well, a tad avoidable. This penchant for the dramatic, for diving headfirst into the abyss, sometimes quite literally, is what sets our beloved adventurers apart from the common folk who prefer the safety of their thatched huts. And so, with a blend of admiration and a smidgen of bemusement, we delve into the world of fantasy adventurers. Before we delve deeper, hit like, subscribe, and smash that notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. Underestimating the Harmless Old Man. Judging a book by its cover is not just unwise, it's practically a death wish. Take the ubiquitous Harmless Old Man, a staple in any self-respecting adventurer's journey. Our heroes, brimming with youth and hubris, often dismiss this wizened figure as a mere footnote in their grand narrative. But, as fate loves irony, this seemingly frail individual invariably turns out to be a wizard of immeasurable power, a sage with knowledge pivotal to the quest, or, in a particularly unlucky twist, a vengeful deity in disguise. The number of adventurers who have found themselves turned into toads or banished to other dimensions, all because they couldn't respect their elders, is embarrassingly high. You'd think after the 1,000th time a bearded old man in a cloak turned out to be the key to saving the world, these adventurers would start showing a bit more deference, ignoring the obviously evil artifact. The allure of the obviously evil artifact is a siren song for adventurers. There it sits, in the midst of an ancient temple, radiating malevolent energy and practically screaming, "I'm cursed!" Yet our intrepid heroes, with the wisdom of a goblin in a fireworks factory, decide to pocket it for later use. The number of quests that have been derailed because someone couldn't resist picking up a glowing skull or a blood-dripping dagger is staggering. The outcome is predictably dire: possessions, hauntings, the occasional transformation into an unspeakable horror. And yet, time and again, these artifacts find their way into adventurers' backpacks. It's as if the shiny allure of these objects blinds our heroes to the fact that no, the ancient scepter inscribed with skulls isn't just a fancy walking stick. The perils of splitting the party. Let's split up. Perhaps the most infamous last words in the lexicon of fantasy adventuring. Every bard worth their salt knows tales of parties who, upon encountering a fork in the dungeon path, decide to divide their strength. The results are predictably catastrophic. One half of the party invariably stumbles into a nest of goblins, while the other half is ensnared by enchanted traps, or ends up arguing with a sentient, philosophically inclined door. Communication breakdowns lead to chaos. Rescues become necessary, often involving the group that wasn't in trouble initially. The folly of splitting up in a world teeming with unspeakable dangers is glaringly obvious to everyone except, it seems, the adventurers themselves. The rule is simple: stick together or prepare to face the consequences, usually in the form of a monster that's conveniently resistant to your best fighter's attacks. Skipping the fine print in quest contracts. It's a common sight in fantasy realms. Adventurers hastily agreeing to quests without so much as a glance at the details, their eyes glazed over with visions of gold and glory. The devil, as they say, is in the details, or in this case, the fine print of the quest contract. This oversight frequently leads our heroes into situations that are as absurd as they are perilous. From inadvertently agreeing to marry the local troll chieftain in exchange for passage through a bridge, to unwittingly becoming the indentured bard to a whimsically tyrannical dragon, the consequences of not reading the fine print can be dire, and often a touch ridiculous. There's a reason why the wisest of scribes recommend carrying a magnifying glass alongside your sword and shield. The fine print might just specify that the endless riches promised are actually an endless supply of turnips, or that the eternal gratitude of the kingdom involves being paraded around in a jester's outfit every third Thursday. misjudging the harmless potion. In a world where a sip of the right concoction can grant invisibility or turn the drinker into a creature of unimaginable power, you'd think adventurers would exercise a bit more caution with mysterious potions. Alas, the temptation of an unlabeled vial often proves too great for our curious heroes. Whether it's drinking a potion that was supposed to be applied topically, resulting in a rather awkward situation involving the growth of tentacles, or mistaking a powerful love potion for a healing draft, cue the awkward affections of a nearby ogre. Potion-related mishaps are a staple of adventuring life. The rule of thumb, don't drink anything that glows in the dark or smells like a goblin's sock, is routinely ignored, leading to all manner of colorful predicaments. And let's not forget the classic blunder of mixing potions, which usually results in a series of effects that range from embarrassing to requiring immediate intervention by a skilled alchemist. The classic tavern brawl escalation. What starts as a simple disagreement over a game of dice or an arm wrestling match in a tavern can escalate faster than a wildfire in a dry thicket. Tavern brawls are the bread and butter of many an adventurer's evening entertainment. However, these seemingly harmless scuffles often spiral out of control, turning into full-blown melees that involve flying tankards, magical mishaps, and the occasional summoned creature, because why settle for mere fists when you can conjure a spectral bear? In the aftermath, our heroes often find themselves banned from yet another establishment, nursing bruises and trying to explain to the local constabulary why there's a minotaur stuck in the chimney. The moral of the story? In the world of fantasy adventuring, it's wise to tread carefully in taverns, or at least sit close to the exit. Miscommunication with mythical creatures. Interactions with mythical creatures can be fraught with peril, not least due to the adventurer's often woeful lack of cultural sensitivity. A dragon's hoard is not just a pile of gold to be pilfered, it's a deeply personal collection, curated over centuries. Insult it, and you might find yourself on the receiving end of fiery retribution. Likewise, confusing a fairy for a pixie, or heaven forbid, a nymph for a dryad, can lead to all sorts of magical muddles. These creatures, with their ancient customs and powerful magic, are not to be trifled with. Yet time and again, adventurers bumble into sacred groves or forbidden temples, blundering through ancient rites and offending beings whose grudges can last longer than most kingdoms. It's not just about knowing the right words or gestures. It's about understanding that in the world of the mystical, respect is more valuable than the shiniest of gems. The catastrophe of ignoring local customs. In their quest for glory, adventurers often trample over local customs and traditions with the grace of a troll in a china shop. Whether it's bringing weapons into a peace-loving village, using magic in a realm where it's forbidden, or simply refusing to remove their muddy boots in a sacred shrine, the lack of cultural awareness can be astounding. This disregard for local customs doesn't just ruffle feathers. It can lead to being chased by angry mobs, cursed by offended priests, or even inadvertently starting a war. The lesson here is simple yet often ignored. When in Rome, or rather, in the mystical land of Eldoria, do as the Eldorians do. The folly of underestimating the local wildlife. The local wildlife is more than just scenery. It's an active participant in the adventure, often with a bite much worse than its bark. Adventurers, in their infinite wisdom, tend to treat formidable beasts as mere nuisances. This underestimation leads to scenarios where a harmless bunny in a mystical forest turns out to be a carnivorous monster in disguise, or a sleepy dragon is actually cunningly biding its time. The lesson painfully learned is that in fantasy lands, even the squirrels can be deadly, and assuming otherwise can lead to some embarrassing and painful encounters. The misguided trust in unreliable maps. The classic scenario of relying on a map scribbled on a napkin by a dubious character in a tavern. Adventurers have a peculiar habit of placing blind trust in these questionable navigational aids, often leading them not to treasure, but into the lair of something with far too many teeth. The irony is that these maps, with their cryptic symbols and exaggerated X marks the spot, are as reliable as a chocolate teapot. Yet time and again our heroes follow these dubious charts, leading to misadventures that could have been easily avoided with a little skepticism and perhaps a decent compass. The classic overestimation of one's abilities. Many adventurers suffer from a chronic case of overconfidence. They'll face a foe thrice their size, and with twice the number of heads, armed with nothing but a rusty dagger and a cocky grin. This overestimation of their abilities often leads to situations that are as dangerous as they are absurd. Whether it's trying to outdrink a dwarf, outspell a wizard, or outsneak a thief, the results are usually a bruised ego and body at best, and at worst, a one-way trip to the nearest resurrection temple. The path of adventure is paved with the mishaps of those who thought they could single-handedly take on a dragon or talk their way out of a goblin horde. In the grand tapestry of fantasy adventuring, these blunders and missteps weave a pattern of tales both thrilling and cautionary. Our adventurers, in their pursuit of fame and fortune, offer us more than just escapades. They provide a mirror to our own foibles, magnified to fantastical proportions. These misadventures, from potion mishaps to tavern brawls, from misjudging mythical beings to ignoring local customs, are not merely errors in judgment. They are the very essence of the adventurous spirit. This spirit, reckless and bold, often leads to trouble, but it's also what makes these stories so compelling. The unpredictability, the chaos, the sheer audacity of it all is what keeps us turning the pages, eager to see what ludicrous predicament our heroes will find themselves in next. After all, a perfectly planned adventure is like a perfectly planned party. It rarely goes as expected, and it's the unexpected that often brings the most joy. So here's to the adventurers. May their blunders continue to be as grand as their bravery. For in their mistakes, we find not just amusement, but a reminder of the adventurous spirit that lies within us all, waiting to leap before it looks and, perhaps, learn something along the way. Thanks for listening. To find out more about John Cronshaw and his work, visit